What's up, Rival Fanatics? It's Darkon and Heavy Arms here for the Rival League, and welcome to the Meta Report, where we discuss the theory related to competitive Rival. And recently, we've seen some brand new things come out, and primarily we're talking about the brand new leaks of the brand new Nerf Rival Edge line. These things were leaked about a few weeks ago, and so we want to talk about specifically how these blasters are going to change the current metagame of competitive Rival. So the first blaster we're going to talk about is the brand new Mercury XIX 500. It is a spring-powered bolt-action pistol that holds 5 rounds and actually has 90 FPS. So what's interesting is we already have the Chronos, but now we're going to get this other blaster that is also going to be a pistol. It's very similar to a Chronos, but it's bolt prime. So Heavy Arms, what is your theory in relation to this in the competitive aspect of Rival, as well as how would you compare it to the Chronos?
Compared to the Chronos, I think the Chronos has the advantage on reloading by being a slide mechanism versus the bolt action. It also has the 5-round internal clip, whereas the Edge series appears that they're going to be having a side port window to keep count of how many rounds are still in your gun or in your blaster. Now, the bolt action on either side, I do like that's ambidextrous. I've watched some videos on it to where you can take it on one side, put it on the other, and it's fairly easy to manipulate that. But it is 90 feet per second, and with it being a spring loader, 90 feet per second, jumping into the already created field of the Rival series, it's got a lot of firepower to compete with. Unfortunately, because of that bolt, it's not the friendliest of sidearms, but the size that they're displaying, it does look like it's competitive for the size versus a Chronos. So it might be a little bit sleeker design, it might be a little bit smaller blaster, which whenever you look at some of your players who like stealth over head-on confrontation, a spring-based series might not be a bad thing in that you won't have the rev-up noise surrounding you and you'll be able to maintain your stealth a lot easier.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on a lot of these aspects. I think one of the other things too is that because it's a bolt prime blaster, especially for a pistol, I think one of the things a lot of us like to do with pistols is to use some sort of holster, and I can't really see that if you have a bolt sticking out on the side to be able to holster it. So in the case of something like, say, a Chronos, you may have, let me see if this actually fits. I don't know if it does. No, it doesn't fit. Anyway, this is for my Recruit pistol. You'll have to give me a second. But a lot of times, I'm not going to worry about it. But anyway, you want to be able to holster that thing because you're usually using it as a secondary, right? I don't know of anyone in the actual Rival League itself, in the competitive aspect, that actually uses a Chronos specifically as a primary all the time. You're usually using some other primary, and you only use the Chronos as a secondary in the event that your primary fails, or maybe you're in the middle of reloading because your primary is out of ammo, and you can't reload it as fast as you need to, so you usually pull out the secondary just to kind of keep the opponent at bay until you can get time to actually do that. So it's going to be interesting. I've never really seen a bolt-action pistol. I think they've done it on the Nerf Elite line somewhere. I don't remember what blaster that may have been, but we don't really see bolt-action for this, which I think brings us to an interesting thing, because I think one of the theories behind the brand new Rival Edge line is not only are all these blasters going to come with targets to kind of talk about precision, but there also sounds like most of these blasters are going to be bolt action. Now, we don't know if that's the case yet, but that seems to be the theory of that. So, I mean, what do you think your take is on we may have a whole line that's just based around bolt action style blasters?
I'm not necessarily opposed to a bolt action, especially if it translates from real world firearms, where bolt action usually does mean you're going to have a higher accuracy round. And then since they're advertising this as the marksman package, maybe there is something just a little bit different about the blaster design where you might get more accurate shots for the distance.
Well, that could be the case. I personally think that the whole accuracy aspect is more, in my opinion, is a gimmick, because I've seen a lot of that with the Elite line. And so I think that, one of the things that I liked about Rival in the beginning is that there wasn't really any gimmicks. It was all just, this is a rifle-style blaster, and that was all they had. This is a full-auto magazine-style blaster, and that's all it has. And we didn't see the same gimmicks like you see in the Elite line with the zombie strike stuff and having buzz saws and attachments and all those things. We haven't seen that in the Rival line until now. So I really think that it's still going to boast the same performance that we're seeing, the same accuracy we're seeing with the rest of the Rival. It's just going to be focused around, hey, we want you to shoot these targets to see how accurate you can get. I don't think we're going to see special ammo. I don't think we're going to see special internals. That's my opinion, obviously, on that. But I just don't see that happening. So anyway, back to the Mercury. In terms of the competitive aspect, if we had to actually tier this out based on speculation, where do you think this may fall on the tier list of competitive Rival? Obviously, S is the best and F is the worst. Where do you think this may actually fall on that list?
Either a low C or a high D. I really don't see it being able to fulfill multiple roles like attack, defense, control. The best you're going to get out of that is get familiar with the blaster yourself, figure out how to use it one particular way, get your 5 or so shots out of it, and then you're stuck to reloading. You just don't have enough to engage in a prolonged exchange.
Yeah, I see it myself being a kind of a D. I classify a Kronos as a C for a primary, simply because it is limited its aspect primarily as a secondary, and the worst for me is the Atlas, which is an F, and part of the reason it's just not consistent. I mean, about 30% of the time your rounds in an Atlas just come out as duds. They don't actually shoot consistently. I see this being at least consistent. So I think that you're going to get the 5 shots consistently, but because it's bolt action, I see it being a slower rate of fire compared to a Kronos. And like I said, not being able to easily holster this thing because of the bolt action prime, for me, is a huge turnoff. Obviously, I'm going to get one. I'm going to try it in competitive anyway because that's what I do with every blaster. But I just don't see it being as useful as what we already have in a Kronos. And with Kronos as being cheap and readily available, I don't see why you would want a Kronos, or I don't see why you'd want a Mercury over a Kronos for competitive play. And I think the other aspect is the price point. I mean, if we're looking at this, it's basically a Kronos that's bolt action. But it's going to come with that extra target, which means that we're going to pay a higher price tag for something that is effectively, in my opinion, is a worse Kronos. So,
I mean, yeah, for what you're getting out of box, like, probably is going to be a little bit higher price tag on it.
Yeah. So I would personally say stick with a Kronos unless you really have any crazy reason to get a Mercury. I know the Rival League always picks up every single Rival blaster when they come out, so I'm sure me and a few other people like Arsenal will probably pick up one of these just to have one,
right.
And we'll let people mess around with it in competitive play and just be like, okay, well, that was fun, like the Atlas was, and just kind of not really use it much anymore.
The only thing I'll give it credit for is just part of the theory. We haven't seen how it works yet. Is that side window to keep track of your ammo. There might be a useful or a quick loading procedure.
Well, that's true.
So we're not dealing with the standard magazine that came with the Zeus. We're not dealing with the open top, pour it in, like the Prometheus or the
Nemesis. Yeah.
Thank you. So it could be, once again, they introduced a new loading mechanism. If it's quick, that might up its effectiveness.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, but that's based on what we know. That's what we kind of see right now. So let's talk about what other Rival Edge blaster we have seen, which has been shown on the back of the box of the Mercury, which is the Jupiter XIX 1000. Now this thing, there seems to be a community behind this because there's either people that are for this blaster or against this blaster. And the thing about the Jupiter 1000 is that it is a bolt action sniper rifle which has a bipod that looks to be possibly be detachable, and it holds 10 round capacity. It's a Springer, of course, because it's bolt action. And so I think the interesting thing here is there's a lot of people, myself included, who have been saying we need a sniper rifle in the Rival brand, right? That's been the biggest thing that I know I've been saying, that there's some other people have been saying. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who have also been saying that once the Nemesis came out, they're like, there's no reason to have a sniper rifle. If you have a Nemesis, you don't really need a sniper rifle, so why are you even going to have a sniper rifle? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we have sniper rifle type blasters in the Elite line, right? We have the Raptor Strike, we've had the Long Shot, the Long Strike, the, what's the Alpha one? Anyway, the other smaller Alpha, I can't remember what it's called. So we have snipers in there. We have Centurion, right, which even is boast terrible performance when it first came out, And those are all sniper rifle type blasters that don't actually perform like we would expect for a sniper rifle.
Right, but
And
that's filling out the series brand.
Yeah,
Like, and
so-
here's your sniper rifle.
Tell us what you think. What are your opinions of actually having a sniper rifle class blaster? Now, I will say one thing. We don't know the FPS on this thing yet. So we have no
This is
indication if it's going to be 90, 100, or higher than 100. So we don't really know. So it's kind of hard to classify, is this really going to perform like a sniper? But
Right. Well, regardless of FPS, there's one thing that is really great about the design on this, which is that bolt action. Whereas with the pistol, it's not as obvious of a trade-off. But for the sniper rifle, one of the things in the Rival series that's been really tough if you haven't been using an electronic-based blaster is that you have to get your forehand up there, control the blaster, and you're putting your body out around from behind your barriers in order to make your shots. With the spring in the back, you can just barely stick the barrel out there, and you start getting a whole lot more effective shots without exposing yourself to other blaster shots. So that's one of the major advantages that I see. Even if it is a slower firing blaster, even if it has a low round capacity, there's a lot of tactical advantages to it.
so you're the type of player that usually does a lot of heavy artillery, like Prometheuses and multiple Nemesis on the battlefield.
Shock and awe.
Shock and awe is right. Do you think that Rival actually needs a sniper rifle at all?
I think Rival needs an effective sniper rifle. As far as competitive play, it needs to be able to reach out further than the other blasters that are already in existence. If it can't reach out a little bit further, and a little bit further, I mean 10, 15 feet, just far enough so you can reach out and touch someone knowing that they can't reach back and touch you. But as far as just filling out the marketing brand, at this point in the game, it would have been nicer to see that earlier and it would have had a whole lot more impact. But as of right now, we really need bang for the buck and need that range.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree on you that I wish we really would have seen this blaster a little bit earlier in the Rival line, simply because once the Nemesis came out and the high capacity blasters came out, it really changed the meta. I mean, there was a huge difference between playing competitive Rival when it was just the original blasters, the Zeus and the Apollos, and then even adding the Chaos and the Atlas to it. There wasn't a lot of change and shakeup in the meta, but once we got the Artemis, once we got the Nemesis, and we started having these high capacity blasters that were really useful, it made the meta seems to be revolve around the high capacity and revolve around a slightly more defensive style because there's so many rounds flying on the field at one time, right? And now we got the Prometheus and the Hades on top of that. So having a 10-round sniper rifle type blaster at this point in the game I think is going to make it harder for those people who actually try to adopt this as a competitive style of play. I'm still happy that we're actually going to see the sniper blaster that we've all been wanting for a while. Obviously, it's one of the things that I know I'm looking at. I mean, I guess we have to talk about snipers. We have to probably talk about Zectech for a second.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's actually going to adopt this blaster, but if it performs as well as the Apollo, because pretty much anyone who snipes in competitive play pretty much has to go to an Apollo because it still shoots the farthest and hits the hardest and has the most accuracy out of any Rival blaster that exists, right? And she uses that to just effective domination in a lot of cases. But with this being, we don't know if this is going to be the same way. We're hoping it's going to be the same way. I think even if it's 100 FPS, I think I could be okay with that, but I think it's going to definitely be overshadowed by some of those other blasters. So we don't know, like I said, we don't know enough about this blaster really to make a whole determination, but if you had to classify this on the tier list, where do you think this blaster may fall based on current information and speculation?
Current information, I really don't see it being an attacking-based blaster, although I do see it could be a solid defense and control blaster. Just being able to get into your lanes, target some zones, especially if they're promising the accuracy with it. You take your time and take 10 accurate shots versus spraying 50 just to try to suppress. That could be the difference between someone staying in the game, giving a teammate time to get back in the game. I think a B is about where I'd place it.
Classified as a B. I'm going to say this is probably going to be a C-level blaster. I think I'm going to see this a lot more on defense because there's going to be so much ammo out there, and I see it more of as a niche type blaster, very similar to the Apollo. which I classify the Apollo as a C. So I'm thinking this is going to be a C, but I could see it moving up to a B depending on how effective the range is. And I think that's the big factor with this right now is we don't know what the effective range is going to be. And so because of that, it kind of makes it a little bit hard. If we see this at 110, 115 FPS maybe, we could definitely see this moving up the tier list and being more effective. But with so many Prometheuses, Nemesises, the Hades and the Artemis now, and even we have players like Mad Hatter and Arsenal who are just dominant with Heras. They carry like 10, 12 round mags,
right,
and they can quickly dump a whole 12 rounds. So it's effectively full auto in many cases, and so those things can easily pin a sniper down if it's the same range. It's only if it's
right,
actually farther than that are we actually going to see this change out. So, well, we hope that gives you some speculation as to what we've seen so far on these leaks for the brand new Nerf Edge Rival line. We look forward to hopefully seeing these blasters soon. If anything, there's usually 2 releases for Rival blasters, which is usually spring release, which is in January, and usually the fall release, which is mid-July, early August. So with us already actually seeing some of these blasters in the wild, especially the Mercury, I have a feeling we're going to hopefully see this in January. And if that's the case, that means it'll be here soon, so we can actually get our hands and do a little bit more speculation on that. Do you have any final words for us on these blasters in particular?
I'm looking forward to getting my hands on them, try them out.
All right. We also want to give out a shout out to Nexus Esports for actually hosting us here today and letting us use one of their rooms so we can actually sit down and talk about the speculation. So if you get a chance, click the link in the description below and check out Nexus Esports. They're an esports bar, but they do more than just esports. They have a whole line of other things for collectible games like collectible card games and board games and a variety of things, and they're actually the premier esports center in Waco, Texas. So if you get a chance, click the link in the description below and check them out. Alright, with that said, this is Darkon and Heavy Arms signing out.